Mia Parker had always been curious about the stars. On clear nights, she'd sit in her backyard, telescope aimed at the heavens, charting constellations and dreaming of adventures beyond Earth. But on this particular evening, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, charged with an energy that made her skin prickle. Even her dog, Max, usually fearless, whimpered and hid under the porch. The night was unusually quiet. No crickets chirped, no wind stirred the trees. Mia, perched on her favorite lawn chair with a sketch pad full of star maps, noticed a strange flicker in the sky, a small, glowing dot zigzagging erratically among the stars. At first, she thought it might be a satellite, but satellites didn't move like that. As she watched, the light grew brighter, descending rapidly. It wasn't long before it was clear, it was heading straight for her. She barely had time to react when the object broke through the atmosphere with a deafening roar, bathing the yard in an eerie green glow. The ground trembled beneath her feet as a sleek, angular spacecraft landed with startling precision in the middle of her yard. Its surface was smooth and metallic, reflecting the moonlight like a dark mirror. Before Mia could scream or even process what was happening, a hatch opened on the side of the craft. From the shadows emerged figures, tall, humanoid shapes with unsettling features. Their skin was a shimmering metallic gray, and their elongated limbs moved with an unnatural grace. Their faces were devoid of mouths, their glowing, ember-like eyes scanning the area with unnerving precision. They communicated in sharp, clicking sounds, the meaning of which Mia couldn't comprehend. Frozen with fear, Mia stood rooted to the spot as one of the creatures raised a device. A thin beam of light shot out, wrapping around her like a cocoon. She tried to run, but the light lifted her off the ground, weightless and paralyzed. She screamed for her parents, but the sound was swallowed by the hum of the spacecraft. From the corner of her eye, she saw Max barking furiously, but an alien waved its hand, and the dog collapsed into unconsciousness. Her heart pounded as the beam pulled her toward the ship, through the open hatch. The air inside was icy and sterile, filled with a faint metallic tang. The aliens carried her into a chamber lined with strange, pulsing symbols that seemed alive. They placed her on a floating platform, securing her with bands of shimmering light. As she struggled, one of the creatures touched a panel on the wall, and a holographic projection filled the room. It was a dragon. Mia gasped. The creature in the projection was enormous, its form both organic and mechanical, with scales that looked like molten metal. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural fire, and its wings were so vast they seemed to stretch into infinity. The aliens chanted in their guttural language, their gestures reverent. Though she couldn't understand their words, the message was clear: the dragon was their god, and she was their offering. Panic surged through Mia. "No! You can't do this," she shouted, her voice cracking. She twisted and turned against her restraints, but they held firm. The ship rumbled to life, and the holographic dragon vanished, replaced by a view of Earth shrinking rapidly behind them. Tears streamed down Mia's face as the blue-green planet faded into the void. "Please," she whispered, unsure if the aliens could understand her. "I don't want to die." One of the creatures turned to her, its glowing eyes narrowing. It placed a clawed hand on her head, and a cold wave washed over her. Suddenly, her mind was filled with fragments of images, alien worlds, fields of stars, and finally, the dragon itself. It wasn't just a beast, it was something more. Intelligent. Powerful. Hungry. The creature removed its hand, leaving Mia trembling. Whatever they had shown her, it had made one thing clear: she wasn't being taken for no reason. The dragon demanded her. She was to be its food, its energy source, its sacrifice. As the ship hurtled deeper into space, Mia's terror gave way to something else, a flicker of defiance. She didn't know how, but she was going to survive this. She wasn't just a helpless child. Somehow, she would fight back. And she wouldn't face the dragon alone. Mia was jostled awake as the ship came to a sudden halt, the jarring motion snapping her from restless dreams of Earth. The air inside the chamber felt heavier now, oppressive, as if the ship itself anticipated what lay ahead. Her restraints dissolved into particles of light, and before she could move, two of the aliens loomed over her, their movements deliberate and methodical. They gestured for her to follow. She hesitated, glaring up at them. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, voice shaking but firm. They tilted their heads in unison, as if her defiance was more curious than threatening. One raised a device that emitted a low hum, and Mia felt her body involuntarily rise from the platform. Floating inches off the ground, she had no choice but to obey as they guided her through the cold, metallic corridors of the ship. The further they moved, the more the atmosphere changed. The sterile, polished walls gave way to something organic, almost alive. Veins of glowing green light pulsed beneath the surface, and the air grew thick with the smell of sulfur. The faint sound of a low, rhythmic rumble reached her ears, growing louder with each step. It wasn't mechanical, it was breathing. They stopped before a massive door, its surface etched with alien symbols that pulsed in sync with the rumbling. The aliens placed their hands on the symbols, and the door slid open with a hiss. Mia's stomach dropped. The chamber was vast, almost cavernous, lit by an eerie bioluminescence emanating from the walls. In the center of the room, coiled like a serpent in slumber, was the dragon. Its size was overwhelming. Metallic scales rippled across its body, each one shifting colors like oil on water. Its wings, folded tightly against its back, appeared to be made of some translucent, crystalline material that refracted the chamber's dim light into dazzling beams. Its head, crowned with jagged, horn-like spines, rested on the ground, its molten gold eyes closed. Yet even in its stillness, its presence radiated raw power. Mia's captors nudged her forward, breaking her trance. The dragon stirred. Its eyes opened, fixing on her with an intensity that made her knees buckle. There was no doubt in her mind this creature wasn't just alive. It was intelligent. The aliens began to chant, their voices blending into a guttural symphony. The dragon's eyes flicked toward them, then back to Mia. Slowly, it rose, its massive form casting long shadows that seemed to dance with malevolence. It let out a low, resonant growl that reverberated through the chamber. Mia braced herself, expecting the creature to lunge, to devour her in one swift motion. But it didn't. Instead, it tilted its head, studying her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a sudden wave of warmth flooded her mind, and she realized with a jolt that the dragon wasn't attacking her, it was communicating. Images, emotions, and fragmented thoughts poured into her consciousness. She saw a world bathed in fire, alien cities crumbling beneath the dragon's wrath. She felt its anguish, its fury at being enslaved by the aliens who now worshipped it as a god. They had bound it with energy restraints and fed it sacrifices to harness its power, using it as both a weapon and an energy source. Mia staggered backward as the flood of information overwhelmed her. You're a prisoner," she whispered aloud, her voice trembling. The dragon's gaze didn't waver. The aliens, oblivious to her realization, began to move forward, their chanting reaching a crescendo. One raised a staff-like object that pulsed with light, aiming it toward Mia. She flinched, but the dragon let out a deafening roar, the sound rippling through the chamber like an earthquake. The aliens froze, their glowing eyes flicking between Mia and the dragon in confusion. The creature turned its full attention to Mia, sending another surge of images. This time, the message was clear, it wanted her help. "How?" she whispered. She was just an 11-year-old girl. What could she possibly do against these aliens and their advanced technology? The dragon's molten gaze seemed to pierce through her doubts, and she felt a strange sensation of hope. One of the aliens barked a command, and the others began to approach Mia again. But the dragon moved faster. It slammed its tail against the ground, sending a shockwave that knocked the aliens off their feet. The chamber's glowing walls dimmed, and the air crackled with energy. The dragon's roar echoed once more, this time filled with defiance. Mia's mind raced. The dragon was powerful, but it was still chained, its energy restrained by some invisible force. She remembered the glowing symbols on its scales from the images it had shown her. Those weren't just decorative, they were part of the system that kept it bound. Taking a deep breath, she ran toward the dragon. The aliens shouted in their guttural language, but she didn't look back. Her hands trembled as she reached for one of the glowing symbols on its massive neck. The moment her fingers touched it, a surge of energy coursed through her, lighting up her veins like fire. A voice clear and deep filled her mind. "Free me, and I will protect you." Before she could respond, the aliens regrouped, aiming their weapons at her. The dragon roared, shielding her with its massive wing. The chamber erupted into chaos, but Mia had already made up her mind. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was part of something far bigger now. And for the first time since her abduction, she felt like she had a chance. The chamber was chaos. Alarms blared as the ship's AI registered the dragon's defiance, its resonant roars echoing through the metallic halls. The aliens, scrambling to regain control, barked commands in their guttural language, their movements frantic as they aimed their weapons at both the dragon and Mia. Mia pressed her hand against the glowing symbol on the dragon's neck, her heart pounding. Energy surged through her like a tidal wave, and for a moment, she felt as though she were merging with the creature. Its thoughts became hers, its emotions a storm raging inside her mind. The voice, deep and commanding, spoke again, "We must act quickly, child. They will not hesitate to kill us both." "Tell me what to do," she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. The dragon responded by flooding her mind with images, a sequence of glowing panels located along its body. Each one was part of the energy binding system the aliens used to control it. If she could disable them, the dragon would be free. The first panel pulsed just above the dragon's shoulder. Mia scrambled up its massive, metallic frame, gripping its scales like rungs on a ladder. The surface was warm and alive, humming with power. Her hands found the first panel, a square of glowing, alien symbols etched into the dragon's skin. Without hesitation, she pressed her fingers to it. The panel resisted at first, the symbols sparking with energy, but the dragon guided her. "Focus. Think of release, of breaking chains." Mia clenched her teeth, concentrating with every ounce of willpower. The symbols began to flicker, then dim. With a sharp crack, the panel went dark, and a tremor rippled through the dragon's body. It let out a triumphant roar, its molten gold eyes blazing brighter. The aliens reacted immediately. One of them aimed a glowing staff at Mia, and a bolt of energy streaked toward her. The dragon moved with lightning speed, its tail whipping through the air and smashing the weapon to pieces. The alien holding it was sent flying into the wall, its metallic skin sparking as it crumpled to the ground. "Next one," Mia shouted, scanning for the next panel. The dragon turned, revealing another glowing symbol on its massive forearm. She slid down its side, landing with a thud on the floor. Before she could climb up, one of the aliens lunged at her, its clawed hand reaching for her throat. Mia screamed, ducking at the last second. The alien's claws raked the air just above her head. She scrambled backward, her heart pounding, but before it could strike again, the dragon intervened. It swiped at the alien with its massive paw, sending it skidding across the chamber floor. The dragon's voice filled her mind again. "Hurry, they are calling reinforcements." Mia climbed onto its forearm, her hand shaking as she reached for the next panel. This one was larger, its symbols more intricate. As she pressed her fingers to it, the panel flared with light, pushing her back. She screamed in frustration, trying again. "You are stronger than you believe, child. Focus." She closed her eyes, ignoring the chaos around her, the shouts of the aliens, the booming roars of the dragon, the hiss of the ship's automated defenses coming to life. Instead, she thought of home. Her mom's laughter. Max wagging his tail. The endless nights spent staring at the stars, dreaming of adventures. The panel responded. Its glow dimmed, then extinguished. The dragon roared again, its movements growing more fluid as its bonds weakened. But the victory was short-lived. The chamber's walls began to shift, sections of metal sliding apart to reveal automated turrets. They whirred to life, their barrels glowing ominously as they locked onto the dragon. "Watch out!" Mia yelled, clinging to its forearm. The turrets fired. Beams of searing energy shot toward them, but the dragon was ready. It unfurled its massive wings, their crystalline surfaces refracting the beams into harmless rays of light that scattered across the room. With a roar, it unleashed a torrent of plasma breath, destroying the turrets in a spectacular explosion. Mia coughed, the air thick with smoke and heat. She slid down the dragon's arm, landing near its tail. The third panel was just above its hind leg, glowing faintly. She sprinted toward it, dodging debris and fallen aliens. Her fingers found the panel, and this time, she didn't hesitate. She pressed her hands against it, channeling every ounce of determination she had left. The panel resisted harder than the others, sparks flying as the symbols flared. The dragon growled, its massive body trembling as if in pain. Mia gritted her teeth, her hands burning, but she didn't let go. "Come on," she shouted. "Break already." With a final surge of energy, the panel shattered, the glow fading completely. The dragon let out a triumphant roar that shook the entire chamber. Its bonds were broken. The creature reared up to its full height, wings spreading wide. Energy crackled along its scales as it unleashed a massive pulse of power that swept through the chamber, knocking the remaining aliens off their feet. The walls trembled, cracks forming as the ship began to destabilize. Mia collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The dragon lowered its head, its golden eyes locking onto hers. "You have freed me, but we are not yet safe. This ship will not let us escape easily." "Then let's get out of here," Mia said, forcing herself to her feet. The dragon extended its massive wing, creating a ramp for her to climb. She scrambled onto its back, holding tight as it launched itself into the air. The chamber's ceiling split open, revealing a star-filled sky. As the dragon ascended, the ship's AI activated its final defense. Swarms of robotic drones poured from hidden compartments, their sleek forms buzzing with deadly precision. Mia's heart sank as she saw them closing in. But the dragon was ready. It twisted through the air, its plasma breath cutting through the swarm like a hot knife through butter. Mia clung to its scales, adrenaline surging as they shot through the opening and into the void of space. Behind them, the alien ship began to implode, its systems failing under the strain of the dragon's rebellion. As the explosion lit up the stars, Mia felt a strange mix of fear, exhilaration, and hope. She had survived. They had both survived. For the first time since her abduction, she believed they might actually make it home. The dragon soared through the infinite void of space, its massive wings cutting effortlessly through the vacuum. Mia clung to its metallic scales, the stars above her stretching into streaks of light as they raced away from the imploding alien ship. For a moment, the silence was overwhelming. No more alarms, no growls, just the endless hum of the universe around them. Her hands trembled as she glanced over her shoulder at the distant glow of the explosion. The ship that had once held her captive was now a cloud of debris, its fragments twinkling like fireflies in the dark. The adrenaline began to wear off, and reality settled over her like a weight. She was in the middle of space, on the back of a dragon-a creature so alien and powerful she could barely comprehend it. The dragon's voice filled her mind again, calm yet commanding. "We have escaped the ship, but your world is not yet safe. The overlords will come for you, for me, for Earth. We must prepare." "Prepare?" Mia shouted, her voice carried away by the emptiness. "For what? I just want to go home." The dragon tilted its head slightly, its molten gold eyes glancing back at her. "Your courage has freed me, but our bond has also awakened something in you. The power of my kind now courses through your being. You are no longer just a child. You are a link between Earth and the stars. What does that even mean? Mia whispered, her voice trembling. She didn't feel powerful. She felt small, scared, and impossibly far from home. Yet, deep down, she could sense the faint pulse of energy in her veins, the same energy she had used to break the dragon's chains. The dragon's wings flared, slowing their ascent. Ahead, a swirling nebula glowed with vibrant colors pink, purple, and gold swirling together like a cosmic painting. As they approached, a structure began to take shape within the nebula. It was vast, ancient, and beautiful, a floating cathedral of light and metal. This is the Forge of Ancients, the dragon explained. A sanctuary where the first of my kind were created. Here, you will understand your new role. And here, I will regain the full power I once possessed. Mia hesitated. She didn't trust the dragon entirely, not yet. But something about the forge felt welcoming. It was as if the structure were calling to her. Fine, she said, swallowing her fear. Let's see what this is all about. The dragon glided into the heart of the forge, landing softly on a platform that shimmered with golden light. Mia slid off its back, her feet touching the strange, warm surface. The air here felt different, charged with energy, yet breathable. Above her, the swirling colors of the nebula seemed alive, dancing to a rhythm she couldn't hear. Suddenly, beams of light shot down from the ceiling, encircling her and the dragon. The light was warm, almost comforting, and she felt her fear begin to ebb. The dragon lowered its head, its voice resonating in her mind. Step forward, child. The forge recognizes you. Recognizes me? Mia asked, but her feet were already moving. The light around her grew brighter, and she felt herself being lifted off the ground. Images flooded her mind, visions of the dragon's ancient past. It wasn't just a creature of destruction, it was a protector, a guardian of balance across the cosmos. Its kind had been enslaved by the alien overlords long ago, turned into tools of war and conquest. But there was more. The visions shifted to Earth, to Mia herself. She saw fragments of her own life, her stargazing nights, her drawings of constellations, her dreams of adventure. Somehow, all of it had led to this moment. The forge's voice joined the dragon's, deep and melodic. You are the catalyst. The bond you share with the guardian is unprecedented. Together, you have the power to rewrite the fate of this galaxy. Mia's feet touched the ground again, and she gasped, her heart racing. Catalyst? Rewrite fate? I'm just a kid. How am I supposed to do any of that? The forge pulsed with light, and the dragon stepped closer, lowering its massive head to her level. You are not alone. You have me, and you have the strength the forge has awakened within you. Together, we will face what comes next. Mia opened her mouth to argue, but before she could speak, the forge darkened, and a low hum filled the air. The dragon growled, its eyes narrowing. They have found us. Suddenly, the space outside the forge erupted with movement. Alien ships materialized from the shadows of the nebula, their angular designs unmistakable. The overlords were here, and they weren't just hunting the dragon anymore, they were after Mia as well. They won't stop, will they? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. No, the dragon replied. But we will not run. Not this time. The forge flared to life around them, its golden light forming a protective shield. Mia felt the energy within her pulse stronger than ever. She reached out instinctively, her hands glowing with the same light as the forge. The dragon roared, and together, they prepared to face the incoming fleet. For the first time, Mia didn't feel powerless. She felt ready. As the alien ships closed in, she climbed onto the dragon's back, her fear replaced by determination. The forge's voice echoed in her mind one last time. You are the bridge between worlds. Protect your home, and the stars will remember your name. The dragon launched into the fray, its plasma breath cutting through the darkness like a blade of light. Mia, clutching its scales, raised her glowing hands, unleashing a surge of energy that rippled through the battlefield. The aliens wouldn't stop, but neither would she. Because she wasn't just a scared little girl anymore. She was the catalyst. And this was only the beginning.